Welcome, everyone. I am Dr. Lloyd Parks from CARICAD, the Caribbean Center for Development Administration, and I will be uh, emceeing, as it were, as I usually do, our webinar today on this all important topic, communication for behavior change, the role of government information services, and of course, looking at it from our own Caribbean perspective. It is really also important that I wish for you all a wonderful 2022. This is the first time we're meeting like this since the start of this new year. And we at CARICAD, we wish for you all the best in your endeavors, and we look forward to continuing this partnership and journey in supporting you in the transformation of our region through the transformation of our public services for the people of the Caribbean. So you will notice something new for those of you who I noticed from the list of participants. You have been in our webinars before, and you notice that we are now using a new platform. Well, not new as in it has just been invented, but we're using a different platform for hosting our webinars. We are now using Zoom. But just as always, we want to ensure that as we support your ongoing learning and development, that we provide these learning opportunities and we give you some tips, some ground rules as to how to get the most out of these learning opportunities. So in order to do that, we invite you to do as Cheryl Sandberg says, to lean in. That is really to just dedicate the time and the energy, the focus to be truly present in this webinar. And part of doing that is removing your distractions, right? Closing your software applications apart from Zoom and muting your various phones that are around you. And if by chance you can't mute them, you can see if you can, turn the ringer down as low as possible. A lot of times our interruptions come from our colleagues. So just let them know you're in a learning space for the next hour and 15 minutes. And if they could allow the opportunity just to zero in and to focus. It's a virtual environment, so having good internet connection is important. So that is best achieved if you have an internet cable to plug that in. And we always give people the opportunity to ask questions, and we can do so either by typing in the chat. I know that tends to be our mode or preferential mode, but also at the appointed times, we will allow you to just raise your hands, and you can find the raise hand feature. If you look on your toolbar, you'll see reactions, and when you click on reactions, you'll see the raised hand feature. And so you could raise your hand, and we will see that hand and give you the opportunity to unmute and to ask your questions. And so clearly, if you're going to participate in that way, we encourage you to have a good headset and microphone that will help you not only to be heard, but also to block out other noises that might be in our background. All right. And I'm seeing lots of good mornings, etc. in the chat. Yes, from Arlene Macomi. Yes, my sister from Trinidad, Anne-Marie George. I see that, Anne-Marie. Thank you all so very much. Shauna Travers, my sister from the Ministry of National Security here in Jamaica, where I'm located. Garfield Jones, all from that ministry. Arvin Artwell, I remember Arvin, from our Introduction to Leadership program last year. Melody Palmer, great. Marsha from BVI, welcome Marsha, welcome everybody. So I am seeing many people from many countries, and there are quite a number of us on the call right now, 54 in fact. What I have on the board are the flags for all of CARICAD's 17 member states. And we would like to know, ask you to type in the chat, Where are you logging in from today? So I am logging in from Jamaica, my home country, although Barbados is headquartered in Bridgetown, Barbados. Where are you logging in from today? And I see the chat lighten up, lighten up. Fantastic. So Debbie, my sister from Antigua is with us. Yes. Shernet Roberts as well. Maria is one of our associate consultants here with us at CARICAD, joining us from Trinidad, yes. Trudy, my colleague from CARICAD, joining from Barbados. Lynette from BVI. Oh, yes. And Marie George from Dominica. Oh, yes. Dominica is intended to become the world's first climate resilient state. So we're looking out for progress on that. Faye from Barbados, Jolita from St. Lucia. Yes. Garfield from Jamaica, Chantal from Antigua, Fiona from Montserrat. Hi, Fiona. Solange from Antigua, Sharon from Barbados, Shirley-Ann from Montserrat, Agnes from BVI, Sharian from Jamaica. Now, man, I get to all the names. Shartine from Barbados, from the Learning and Development Directorate there. Starla, good to have you, darling, from Belize. Starla from your what? Cohort. She was one of our alumni. I can't remember the cohort right now. Might have been cohort 11, perhaps. I could be wrong. Simone from BVI, Stacy from St. Lucia, Daniel Arthurton from St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you so much. Our expert in economic development in the Caribbean. Welcome. Javan, joining from Carriacou, Grenada. I remember, no, Javan is all the way from cohort 1, alumni. And I remember when I met Javan and he introduced himself, he said he is from Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Yes, and I'm very proud to say I've visited all 3 of those beautiful islands. Sailing from St. Vincent. I see you there, Andrea. Welcome, everybody. There's so many names going on. The Starlight from Driven 11, Solange, thank you. Because Solange is also from Driven 11. So each of our leadership cohorts give themselves a name. So cohort 11 was Driven 11. I love it. Thank you. Aye. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. It is so good to have you. So, when we start a new year, we always get into a mode of reflection. It's time to look at what has happened in the past year, our achievements, the gaps as we see them, and what are the lessons that we are learning from last year, and what are we taking into the future in terms of the lessons and the way forward. And I found this online. I didn't create it. And I found it to be such a useful reflection exercise. And let me tell you something. If you live your life without taking some time to pause and reflect, to evaluate, to assess how far you've come, and to assess the direction in which you need to go, then what you will find that you will be living life, you'll be leading very unintentionally. And my favorite phrase, leadership does not happen by chance. It happens by intention. And so I am curious. No, I know you're not necessarily going to be able to answer every one of these questions. Look at these questions on the board and type in the chat for me any one of those questions you might choose to respond to in the chat. So you can say 8 and just type in the chat what your response is. If you're, for example, typing, responding to question number 8. What did 2021 teach me about myself? I know for me, it taught me that I was more resilient than I thought. Who showed up for me and how can I nurture those relationships? Life, the quality of our life is going to be dependent on the quality of our connections. So who showed up for you and how can you nurture those relationships? What do I need to accept about myself and other people in my life? So one of the things I think I had to learn in a particular relationship that was challenging last year is that I cannot change others. I can only change myself. How did you cope with uncomfortable feelings? How can you better manage your reactions to your feelings? In what ways will I take better care of myself in 2022? I know one of the things I intend to do is to take better care, take greater responsibility for my physical health and wellness, and to increase the intensity and frequency of my personal exercise program. Number 7, what has been a barrier to you completing your goals, and how will you remove that barrier in 2022? Number 8, what limiting beliefs do you need to release? And you might ask, what is a limiting belief? It's a belief that is really holding you back. That belief that tells you, I can't do a particular thing, or I can't become or be a particular way. 9, what do I need to practice doing more or less of? 10, what boundary do I need to implement to improve my peace in 2022? I remember sharing this with somebody yesterday, and they said they want to practice just pausing before they react, not to just be overly reactive, but to pause. Rosetta, welcome. Welcome, Rosetta. So I'm looking in the chat. Anybody brave enough to consider any of these reflection questions and to share their response in the chat? So I notice people are rather shy. Thank you, Shauna. Yes, I see them coming up. I always have to remind myself in the virtual space as a facilitator, I have to be a little more patient, the people have to take some time to think and to type. So Shauna is responding to question number 1. She says, I was not as unbiased in my thought. I learned to allow others to be them. I think they be themselves, I think. Yeah, and not, give me a second there. The up and down key is just running, so they have a way to run out of whack. I cannot expect them to be me. All right, great. Faye says, I love it. She's answering number 3. She said, it's okay not to be okay. Oh, that's so true, Faye. Solange, I'm not sure which one Solange is wrong. But I think she's answering perhaps number 9, which is, I need to listen more thoroughly. Oh, all of us. And not just listen to rebut, but listen to really understand, to suspend judgment. Celine is sharing what Shauna shared. She said, yes, that's what for her also. Javan, he's responding to number 2. True friends assisted more than expected. Oh, Javan, I can testify. So very true. Debbie says, being still. Trudy said in response to number 2, family. Yes. Let me see some more responses. Melody saying in response to number 1 that I am more determined than I realize. Good on you, Melody. Rosetta said, I am human. I can be fragile, but still be strong. Rosetta, you are speaking to my heart. Because 2021, I must admit, was an awful year. It was good in some ways, yes. It wasn't all awful, but it was challenging to the extreme. But that was it for me too, Rosetta. Thanks for sharing. And Marie George for question 4, addressing the problem head on. Marsha, number 6, taking more time for self-development and taking care of her temple. I love it. Chandeline, she's responding to number 6. I need to live the life that I am living. Maitha, I love that Maitha, my good friend from Jamaica Post, says to be more courageous. Maria, number 10, mandatory time for physical and mental well-being on a daily basis. Oh yes, I concur. Stacy, number 1, I'm stronger than I think. And all of us, if we look into it, we can all say that we found out that we were stronger than we thought. Davin, my brother, number 1, being resilient, expect the unexpected. 2, family. 3, learning from each life lesson. Life goes on. Daniel, he's responding to number 1 and he says, patience. Faye, in response to question 6, take better care of my entire body. I love that holistic approach. Spiritual, emotional, physical, a more balanced and healthy lifestyle. And I think we should all remember to add to that financial. We need to take care of our own finances. Stacey Duncan, number 2, my friends. YNCA, number 8, I've reached the pinnacle of my success. Chantal, number 10, protecting my personal space and restricting access when necessary. Esther, my sister from Trinidad, responding to number 1, resilience can be learned. I love that, so true. Don't give up. Isaac, hi Isaac. Isaac is our brother from Grenada. Yes, number 8, that they are out to get me. Oh no, Isaac. You know what? You're stronger than that. Oh yes. Life will throw us curveballs, but we have the strength to deal with that. Martha, based on my reactions in 2020 to situation in 2021, I realized I need to also work on my maturity. Fiona, number 6, more family time, me time, self-love, self-care. Oh yes, fantastic. Monique Pride, she said, so number 1, I need to be more patient. Yes, patient with others, patient with ourselves. And I may not have read all of them, but really, I want you to, when you get some time on your own, spend a little time reflecting on these 10 questions. The unevaluated life is the unfulfilled life. So be intentional about living in your purpose. So thank you for participating. And I am pleased to introduce our topic for today. Communication for behavior change, role of government information services. Now, I believe all of us here do believe in the importance of our government information services. But maybe sometimes we have taken it for granted over the years. But certainly during this time, this global pandemic that seems to be like the gift that will not stop giving, we have recognized in a very real and tangible way the importance of government information services, not just to inform the citizens, but to also to provide communication in a way that is going to allow the citizen not only to evaluate the information, but also to influence the behavior of citizens in a particular direction in order for us to achieve our policy imperatives. And in the case of the global pandemic, for us to be able, as citizens, as nations, as the Caribbean, to actually respond as effectively as possible to this pandemic crisis. We have in the House today, just to talk a little bit more, we find that government information services play a very critical role in the work that we have to do in the transformation of our public services. And so just to remind you about the work that we do, which is based on our Charter for Public Service Transformation. And what you see here on the board just represents the central tenets and pillars of our charter, looking at standards in relation to service standards and service to the public. And government information services, very vital in terms of providing a very all-important role to the public. It also falls under the pillar of openness, where we have to be very open with the sharing of information and knowledge. And it is also very much directly related to the pillar of accountability, where in fact, we are helping to convey and to gather through government information services data that will help with policy development and policy implementation. We play a role in in government information services in supporting good governance, capacity development, supporting the thrust around modernization of legal frameworks through helping to engage citizens on all important consultations and discussions. And so today, I am absolutely delighted to have with us two persons from the Jamaica Information Service. First up will be our Chief Executive Officer, Donna Marie Rowe, who I am very proud to say is a leadership development alumni. Joining her a little later on in her presentation is Andrea Brea. And Andrea will tell us a little more about her work when she joins us, but she is also an alumni. I'm particularly proud of JIS. JIS is an executive agency in the public service. They have done a lot in not only supporting CARICAD, but we have been able to support them in their journey in terms of leadership development and capacity building for their team. I will tell you more about their ISO certification journey and their success in that. And we just are very excited to hear the story. No, Donna Marie, I must let you know that people already, before they even hear you, they're like, we need more of this. We need to hear more. Can I call you for information? How can I get in touch? Because they know that even though this is going to be a good webinar, we know that we're going to need more. So brace yourself to give us more. So without further ado, I hand over now to the very awesome and powerful leader of the JIS, Donna Marie Rowe.
Hear it for Dr. Lloyd Parks. Thank you so much. And good morning, CARICAD. Good morning to all my Caribbean leaders across the public sector in Jamaica and across the region. I am just so happy to be here with you this morning. Thank you for the invitation once again, Dr. Parks. And as we get ready to roll into this webinar, let me just say Happy New Year to you all, and God bless you as we go through all of those questions that Dr. Parks threw up on the slide earlier. We really want to grow and mature. I quite liked that comment that was made by that participant who spoke about their maturity. It's all about growth and maturity. And I want to thank Dr. Parks for this opportunity to speak about communication for behavior change, the role of government information services. I see a few of our clients here, and I want to just recognize them in the public sector here in Jamaica, and to recognize members of the JIS team, or my co-presenter, Andrea Braham, PR and Marketing Manager, and our Special Projects Manager, who should be online as well. So, only a week ago, Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, expressed a view which has cemented the importance of government information services as one of the pillars on which foundations of democracies are built and strengthened. So you saw the house that Dr. Parks had earlier about governance, and indeed, GISs are one of those pillars. It is a vital pillar, the GIS, that supports a democratic governance structure and helps citizens better access government services. And I'm proud to represent the Jamaica Information Service, and our tagline is the voice of Jamaica. So here's our Prime Minister.
What has happened in the pandemic is that we have seen an unleashing of a flood of false information, fake news, and are drifting towards, I choose my word carefully, but it would seem that there is a willingness to accept and believe false information. And so the government has to step up its own information and providing timely and accurate information to the public.
Right.
What has happened?
There you have it. So I'm hoping that you were able to hear the audio well. If not, I'm just to reinforce. The Prime Minister said what has happened in the pandemic is that we have seen an unleashing of a flood of false information and fake news. And it would seem that people have demonstrated a willingness to accept and believe false information. And so the government has to step up its own information, providing timely and accurate information to the public. And you'll see my emphasis there. The government has to step up its own information, providing timely and accurate information to the public. So here you have the pillars that I spoke about. See how strong they are. And that's what is required of us as GISs. The Prime Minister was speaking at the swearing-in ceremony of new cabinet ministers, one of whom was the minister with responsibility for information, Honorable Robert Morgan. And this is a game changer, as the information portfolio was previously with the Ministry of Education and Youth. And speaking of government information being one of the pillars on which the foundations of democracies are built and strengthened, I only have to put up a few pictures of the January 6, 2021 insurrection that took place at the Capitol of the United States for you to recognize the significant role that media plays in societies. And when I speak of media, we must of necessity include social media platforms which have been around since the 1990s, but have gained prominence in recent years. The insurrection also highlights the importance of government communication, citizens' beliefs and behavior. And if we ever needed an object lesson in communication and influencing the behavior of our target groups, it is unfolding before our eyes with the COVID-19 pandemic. And let us not forget to include climate change and people's behavior and the rhetoric in this regard. Now, recently, the Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Mrs. Audrey Sewell, addressed the JIS strategic planning session and used the topic, government communication, navigating an age of distrust and accelerated digital transformation. So you get it, the age of distrust and accelerated digital transformation. I will share with you some highlights of our presentation while showing how the JIS has responded. You heard about our ISO certification earlier, but let's just delve a little bit in the charge, if you will, that PS Sewell gave to us. She said we should plan to lead, not follow. And we would accomplish this by first assessing our performance. This involves reviewing achievements, feedback, trends, and failures, as well as identifying gaps and using the lessons learned to innovate. I'm happy to report that the GIS is operating within a continual improvement model made possible by our acceptance of the Quality Management System Challenge. Approximately 2.5 years ago, we signed on to become ISO 9001-2015 certified, and we successfully achieved this feat in August last year. Yes, it was a grueling process, so much so that we had shirts printed that we survived ISO 9001-2015 Stage 2 certification audit. We have standard operating procedures, regular internal audits of our processes, regular sensitization of our teams and quality checks. we now have a management system in place that adheres to established international standards for quality and service in our core process. And that core process is events coverage and news production. That's the reason we exist. That's our core mandate. We crafted a quality policy, and we also have quality objectives in keeping with the ISO 9001:2015 standard. Being high achievers, we are sticking to them. For those who would like to know more about how we operate as a government information service, our vision is to be the agency of choice for credible government and national information, as well as high quality products and services. We want you to think about us first when you have a media and communication goal or need. We set targets and pride ourselves in achieving at least 80% of them at 100% in order to pay a performance incentive to the hardworking teams. How are we able to do this as a government entity? Well, the JIS is an executive agency, and this means we have a business model which is mandated to earn up to 65% of its expenditure from fees, which we charge for public relations consultation and management, as well as advertising placement. Our PR and marketing manager, Andrea Graham, who I spoke of earlier, she will expand on that a little later in the presentation. And we provide other products and services such as graphic designing and printing, web development and maintenance. So yes, bring it on. Call me, call us, and we'll be happy to serve you, as well as radio and television features. We have printing presses and a digital printer, and we're responsible for producing the throne speech, budget presentations, business cards, annual reports, which have now graduated to CDs, and we also brand them for our clients, as well as print collateral material to support public education campaigns. Recently, our design services were in high demand as ministers had their customized calendars designed and printed by the JIS. And we're able to do this, keeping a rotation schedule going with remote work during the pandemic. Yes, let's remember we are still in a pandemic. And so with a growing number of clients, we no doubt have a range of opportunities to obtain feedback from clients, including our customer satisfaction surveys and focus group sessions. And from these tools, we identify the gaps and trends, and we devise strategies to address them. And these have been outlined in our corporate plan 2022 to 26 and our operational plan for 2022-23. Secondly, our permanent secretary challenged us to analyze the environment by having a look at our stakeholder needs to see if there are new opportunities or threats. In our first focus group session, clients from MDAs said they wanted us to hold their hands in social media management. So that was an opportunity for us. Sticking closely to the charge that the PS gave us. Look in the environment and see what stakeholders need. We have since been offering this service through partnerships and have now established a social media department. So yes, you can bring it on as well, but take your time as we establish ourselves. At the onset of the pandemic and right throughout, our teams have been responsive. And as an agency, we continue to be agile and relevant. First, we ensured that everything was in place to protect our teams by providing PPEs, personal hand sanitizers, masks, and observing the COVID-19 protocols in the offices. We increased our sanitizing activities at all our locations in Kingston and Montego Bay. And believe it or not, we have a staff complement of close to 200, and we operate from 2 main locations in Kingston and 1 in Montego Bay. In Kingston, our TV department is separate from the head office, because of the need for studio space. Now, after looking at the opportunities, we assessed our technological capabilities and moved to purchase additional live streaming equipment to maximize the emerging trends. The GIS was solely responsible for the Prime Minister's regular press briefings at which he announced curfews, lockdowns, quarantined communities who remember those early days of the pandemic, and of course, now the nation's vaccination thrust. The GIS was required to produce town criers and travel to communities that were under lockdown to encourage citizens to observe the measures being put in place to prevent community spread. The GIS printed flyers and leaflets to hand out to citizens explaining the COVID-19 virus, the prevention measures, and where persons could go for help. I don't need to emphasize how critical this information is, as we all operated in a time of uncertainty and information was deemed a precious commodity. We also invested in building the capacity of the team leads, as you heard Dr. Parks made mention earlier, to respond to the changes that were taking place and had regular check-ins to find out how the pandemic was impacting us. We have to make sure that our teams are okay mentally. I think it is important to share with you that everyone at the GIS knew how important their role was to the information flow for the country, especially during the pandemic. Again, this underscores the importance of communication, which was a key pillar for us, and we navigated the change process of implementing the quality management system and emphasizing the importance of government information. Our PR and marketing manager was assigned as the communication lead, and she coordinated the QMS staff newsletters and just created a buzz about ISO 9001:2015 until it became a part of us. I think by now you're beginning to appreciate that the QMS has helped us immensely to not only streamline our processes, but to impact our very performance culture, converting us to a high-performing workforce that is driven to achieve at high standards. And so our mission is to tell the story about Jamaica's growth and development while delivering high-quality products and services using cutting-edge technology. Now, this brings us full circle to where we began when the Prime Minister observed that the public has an appetite for false information. Of course, the media landscape has become quite noisy, and it takes a special skill to catch the attention of our audience, and not just skill, but trust. I need not tell you that it took years for GIS to build its credibility, so much so that it now enjoys a favorability rating among Jamaicans of more than 70% at our last market research survey 2 to 3 years ago. Our media partners rely heavily on us to provide them with news releases, features, audiovisual clips of government assignments, as well as exclusive features, which we initiate. And so I mentioned earlier about our quality policy. Just to show what it looks like, Team GIS is committed to delivering high quality products and services that satisfy our customers, while continually improving our processes in keeping with our quality management system. And there are our quality objectives as well, to achieve employee satisfaction index of at least 65% and a positive net promoter score, and to achieve and maintain a robust system through annual surveillance audits. I made mention of the output that is expected from our events coverage and news production process. Here we have some social media posts. So, and another social media post, Myth Busting Mondays. And this is part of the COVID-19 public education that we are involved in. And I made mention earlier that, persons are relying on us for the information that emerges from government about the disaster risk management measures. And we have to ensure that we are timely and accurate in the dissemination of this information. So I was mentioning that our media partners rely heavily on us to provide them with news releases. And it's significant because we depend on the mainstream media as a major outlet for our print stories. The public relies on our website found at www.jis.gov.jm and our social media pages, especially during the pandemic. And if we miss out on delivering on time, be sure we are being bombarded on every hand by persons who will not carry information from any other source than the JIS. Here's another page that pops up on our website as persons search for the permanent sites for vaccination. So it was the Director General of the World Health Organization who popularized the use of the term infodemic when he said, "We're not just fighting an epidemic, we're fighting an infodemic." And he was speaking at a gathering of foreign policy and security experts in Munich, Germany in mid-February 2020, referring to fake news that spreads faster and more easily than the virus. And so the Permanent Secretary shared that we must take into consideration the global issues facing us as information service organizations of the government. And here they are. 1, the global reach of communication across geographic and linguistic boundaries. 2, the wide range of content available on social media, creating competition for traditional information sources. 3, declining trust of conventional information sources. 4, multiple influencers. 5, the prevalence of misinformation and disinformation. And so in the words of the Prime Minister, we must provide timely and accurate information to the public. But it is not only timely and accurate that is required. It must appeal to our audiences. In fact, the GIS, with the help of our partners at the US Embassy, hosted a workshop on effective government communication late last year. And one of the presenters was Linda Roth, a former producer at CNN. She said, because global attention spans are getting shorter and people don't like to be talked at, we must engage in more storytelling to grab the audience. The GIS is looking to enhance this skill among its writers for print, radio, television, and social media. And we want to integrate the messages for ease of consumption by our audiences. She spoke about the fact that journalism is really storytelling with a purpose. And we have to present the information in a way that is memorable, make the significant interesting, relevant, and valuable. It was really a very impactful workshop, and the team has asked for more so that we can actually begin to implement some of these concepts and ideas as we move into, accelerating our impact and our messaging on behalf of the government. She encouraged us to use social media as a reporting tool. So at the start of the social media becoming popular, many government entities were a little hesitant about utilizing social media platforms. I'm happy to report too that we are going to be finalizing a government social media policy very soon. All right, so I have a little video to share with you before I turn over to our PR and marketing manager, who will speak briefly about some of the campaigns which the JIS has executed in addition to the pandemic, because notice I focused a lot on the pandemic. And rest assured that the business of government continues, and it is not only about the pandemic. So please enjoy this short video, which we produced as part of a competition on customer service in not only the government, but the Jamaica Customer Service Association.
Informing.
Jamaica today confirmed its first imported case of coronavirus.
Educating.
If you follow the recommended procedures, it is highly likely that you will not get the disease.
Going beyond to keep you informed and connected.
Welcome to Get the Fact.
Even through the pandemic. Helping you stay safe while we protect ourselves. Dependable. Impactful. Accurate.
This is your JIS News.
Credible. Trustworthy. Every day, everywhere. Serving our customers proudly.
Thank you very much. And now I'll hand over to Andrea Graham, JIS PR and Marketing Manager.
Thank you, Mrs. Rowe, Dr. Parks, distinguished participants, good morning. It is truly a pleasure to be here. The JIS produces at least 15 campaigns per year in addition to our other services. The PR and marketing department is responsible for conceptualizing and executing these public education and advertising campaigns, which are aimed at promoting a better understanding of government policy. We develop key stakeholder relationships with ministries, departments, and agencies of government. And this assists us in ensuring a proactive flow of information that drives content for radio, television, editorial, social media. And the relationship also allows to better understand and respond to the needs of the MDAs. And as Mrs. Rowe mentioned earlier, many of these MDAs, they need a little hand holding. So typically, we develop PR campaigns, we provide strategic communication advice, we market the services of the JIS, we develop advertising and marketing collateral material. We also provide media buying and placement services, we write news releases, we have what we call think tank sessions, we provide media management events, we facilitate the development of websites and promote the streaming services. So there are over 200 ministries, departments, and agencies of government, and their needs are varied. So the team has to be agile, creative, and citizen-centered in approach to developing our campaigns. One of the first steps in planning the campaign is setting the objectives, which usually arises out of a strategic priority or policy of the government of Jamaica. Target groups are identified and messages are designed to meet them. With the pandemic, of course, there were changes to how people access services. And so the JIS had to be at the forefront and provide information on how to access the benefits. Our campaigns, So some of our campaigns, some of which were executed during the pandemic. We had Vaccinate Jamaica, which was done alongside the Ministry of Health's campaign. We have the Integrity Commission's Declaration of Assets. We have the continued GOJ ban on single-use plastic, the No Excuse for Abuse. We had JASESA, which is a Jamaica Special Economic Zone. We had our ODPEM hurricane and earthquake awareness campaigns. We have the Electoral Office of Jamaica, voter registration and renewal of new ID cards. We also had to publicize the changes to path benefits, etc. And we had to do a whole summit, the RP21 Disaster Risk Reduction Conference, that we had to promote locally and abroad for participants. We also had to produce promotional materials for a virtual summit for the Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority and the World Dubai Expo, which is happening now, as well as a World Free Zone Conference, which is to come. And this is just a tip of some of the work that we have been doing. So Mrs. Rose spoke about our efforts in the Vaccinate Jamaica campaign. So internally, the Prime Minister came in, he addressed us, and he wanted us to produce a campaign, Vaccinate Jamaica. So this was to raise awareness of the importance of being vaccinated and to dispel some of the myths and conspiracy theories, as well as to encourage responsible behavior. So on the right is one of the posters that was used in our social media, as well as printed and distributed. And we work closely with the Ministry of Health and Wellness. We have been in tandem with producing our own deliverables. We also have doing the media placement services for the Ministry of Health and Wellness. So at all hours of day and night, they will send to us material that we have to place and get in traditional media for distribution. On the right here, we have one of the social media messages that we have used. So Mrs. Rose spoke about Vax Facts Mondays. This is Vax Facts Fridays, where we, in combating the infodemic, we also put out information out there. So we're saying the world's first vaccine was used against smallpox in 1796. In 1980, the WHO declared smallpox an eradicated disease. History shows vaccine work. Accept the facts, take the vax. Let's help Jamaica meet its target. Get vaccinated and get back to life. So in our strategy, in our push for assisting for Jamaica to reach its vaccination target, we encourage, we take the path of encouraging people. We say, let's help Jamaica meet its target, get vaccinated and get back to life. And we use a whole host of tools. We produced radio and television messages. We did time signals. We placed messages in social media. We have had think tank and Facebook Live sessions. We have written numerous press releases and disseminating news releases and features. We support the GOJ COVID conversation by providing streaming services. Yeah. And so the Prime Minister came to us on October 6th. He said that he wanted JIS to have a public education campaign to increase the take-up of vaccines. He made that public on October 7th. The very same day that he came to us, half an hour after he left the office, we wrote the first PSA and we had it on air the very same evening. And by 8:30 the next morning, it was on nationwide for our time signal. And so we work alongside the Ministry of Health, and I think it was, Jamaica was about 600,000 thereabout. And on November 7th, he announced that Jamaica achieved the target. Okay. Another of the campaign that we worked on that we are very proud of was the plastic ban. And as you're aware, we are in this is a campaign in 4 going into 4 different phases now. So on September 17, the government announced a policy to implement a ban on single-use plastic bags, plastic drinking straws, among others. And so the ban was one measure to safeguard the nation's natural and built environment. The GIS collaborated with NEPA, and so we developed and implemented a public education program. We provided the facts, so we had frequently asked questions so that people could get the facts, and these were sent all over Jamaica. We had ads. We put out a number of ads. There were also, we used a multiplicity of strategies. So we had stakeholder engagement in the form of town hall meetings. We had exhibitions, we had print ads and posters. And we used a whole gamut of strategies in order to get Jamaica to support the ban. And so we were very pleased when the minister went to Parliament on January 14th and said that the government is extremely pleased with the overwhelming positive national reaction and response to the policy announcement. The support is estimated at over 90% coming from the sector groups, other stakeholders, and consumers in general. Clear evidence of the positive response is the rapid disappearance of single-use plastic bags and plastic straws from the trade, and the pronounced behavior change and attitude coming from the Jamaican people. And so we continue to work on the plastic ban, but we are very proud of what we have done on that. So we also have the Integrity Commission. Integrity Commission came to us and they invited us to develop a public education program aimed at raising awareness about the decentralized approach for the submission of statutory declaration, the need for public officials to submit their declarations before March 31st, and the consequences for breaching the legislation. If you are in Jamaica, you would hear from time to time that not many public officials comply, and there were instances of persons getting into trouble for not complying. So this has a whole another level of target group, because we were targeting the judiciary, parish councillors, including mayors, members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the Jamaica Defense Force, employees of ministries, departments, and agencies of government, JPs, and of course, with every target group, you tack on the general public, who we needed to create awareness of the public officials' obligation and how it might impact their spouses, the children, parents, etc. And so we created a campaign for them, and we are pleased to say that at the end of the campaign and in April, because all these declarations had to be done by March 31st, the Integrity Commission reported increase in the submission of statutory declaration. They noted that it was the most compliant or the best they have had. They also came back to us to provide additional campaign for them. And Miss, if you could go back one slide, one slide, please. One more. They came back to us for their International Anti-Corruption Day. And can we hear that, please? Let me see.
It's International Anti-Corruption Day. Everybody should understand the role they play. From the private sector, youth and law enforcers, education sector, to those in media, civil society, those in academia. In fighting corruption, let's all be a leader. And the young and the old, corruption takes a toll. So it's up to everyone to stand up and say no, it's your right, your role.
Say no to corruption. No to corruption.
Stand up and say no, it's your right, your role.
Say no to corruption. No to corruption.
A message from the Integrity Commission.
Okay, so that was one of the strategies that we used in terms of promoting the message from the integrity corruption, encouraging Jamaicans to say no to corruption. And you notice that in terms of the jingle, the upbeat, because we try to target different segments of the population. We also, during the pandemic, we also hear of increase in terms of domestic abuse, domestic violence, etc. And so,
Andrea,
yes.
Hello. I'm so
Yes.
sorry to interrupt, darling, but we want to allow for some time for questions and discussion. So
I'm finishing in one
yes.
one minute, right?
Okay,
So
please.
we also had a no excuse for abuse campaign in collaboration with the Bureau of Gender Affairs. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, next slide. Okay, so how effective are we at disseminating information? So our news and feature stories are being picked up by the media. We have high engagement in social media, and as has been reported by our clients, we have had some significant behavior change in the target group as reported by our clients. Okay.
ABC, 1, 2, 3.
So,
Match for you and me and he and me. ABC.
all right, that's okay. Okay, so we are the GIS. We are committed to delivering high quality products and services that satisfy our customers, while continually improving our processes in keeping with our management system. And we are here to continuously work with you and to tell the story of Jamaica's growth and development while delivering high quality products and services using our cutting edge technology. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Andrea and Donna. Fantastic. So we are going to open the floor for questions, and there's a question right out of the bat from Deandra. She says a number of campaigns were mentioned. How do you measure behavioral change in the areas? What are the indicators used, and were any audience mapping done for particular messages? So Donna or Andrea, you want to take that question?
Right.
Okay. So for
Andrea, finish. Go ahead, Andrea.
Okay, so for some, it is quite easy. So for example, for the National Integrity Commission, so they are, it's a smaller group that you're targeting. And the Integrity Commission has the data, so they would know how many persons who would have submitted their information the year before, and the extent to which that number has increased. So they would have the data, and so they reported to us that there was a significant increase in terms of the population of persons who submitted their information last year, as this year as well. this is what, 2022? Yeah, the year in which the campaign was done as opposed to the other year. And so they have come back to us. In other areas, I think we have done a campaign where we had we took data before and after. So we used market, I think it was market research to do a poll before and after, so we could measure. This is quite expensive though, because it is not cheap. It is not cheap to do a market survey. So the client will have to have to put, in order to get accurate data, they would have to put the funds up front so that we can do a survey before and after.
All right, thank you, Andrew.
Yes.
So Solange has another question. Well, not another, I have a question. What is the scope of GIS's ISO 9001-2015 certification? What is the frequency of awareness through update activities for staff to maintain the adherence to the policies and procedures?
So I'll take that one, Dr. Parks. So the scope is the events coverage and news production process. And I indicated that in the presentation that we were particular in determining that scope. That's the core process. That's the reason that we exist. The frequency, we have built in a communication system where department managers discuss the quality management system at their meetings. We are also going to do a reorientation exercise. I just got the proposal from our new HR director yesterday to ensure that new recruits are brought up to speed. We're going to have regular sensitization, so quarterly sensitization with a consultant, and to ensure that our project leaders and directors and managers carry the ball of communication throughout the organization to ensure the frequency is maintained.
All right, thank you. Julita has her hand up. Julita, we'll ask you to.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I have two questions though. The first one, I noticed during your presentation, you spoke of the presence of a PR and marketing department. I used to work with the Government Information Service, but I know for sure that does not exist here in St. Lucia. But how can we as government information services across the region benefit from each other or help each other in promoting or advancing the mandate of the Government Information Service by sharing best practices, even in terms of technology, access to training, and continuous professional development so that our mandate is achieved?
I think Dr. Parks has started the ball rolling, but I do know that different GIS heads have reached out to me. I've reached out to them as well. CARICOM, the CARICOM Secretariat had started a kind of regular meeting as well, and that could perhaps be revived. But I think if we just reach out to each other, I don't know that there is a kind of an institutional framework that would facilitate this, but we can reach out to each other, and then Dr. Parks can also help us along with the technical and building capacity. Thank you.
Thank you for that. You know, one of the things we encourage, just like what we're doing here, you know, we do have the kinds of technology that can make it easy for us to collaborate. It doesn't have to start off very formally, just as Rosetta is sharing in the chat. You know, you guys can come together, share your contact details, and just start something as simple as a WhatsApp group to start sharing. And you can organize, you know, to meet on regular basis using any virtual platform that is available, you know. Now, There are a couple more questions in the chat. So one is from Isaac, and he's asking, how does a government information service deal with the challenge of being perceived as just being the government's mouthpiece, just being a propaganda machine, as opposed to being seen as a source of credible information for the citizens?
Thank you for that. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, it took years for us to build up this profile. And the work of the JIS now speaks for itself. It took us a while to get out of that P word, which I don't quite like, right? But by just working at it, we've set up these standards now, and mainstream media's newsrooms have really been scaled back, and so they depend on us. So the way we write the stories, how objective we are presenting the facts, and we are doing public education where the mainstream media and their principals can see that what we're doing is disseminating information that citizens can use. And so we're not spouting politics, but rather government information that will help citizens to better access the services of government and understand the policies and programs of government. I hope that helped.
Okay, thank you. Now we're winding down to the end, but there are still questions. And so Emma Jackson, Emma is from one of our alumni from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who's in charge of public sector reform there. But others have also, commented on our question as something that is of interest to them. And I want to summarize the question by asking, how does JIS really collaborate? How do you manage a collaboration with other ministries and departments and agencies so that you can actually achieve that outcome of the behavior change to advance particular policies, whether it is in health, as we talk about COVID, or any other areas? How do you manage that collaboration to get the outcomes of behavior change?
Right, so I'll start off and then throw to Andrea, who does that on a day-to-day basis with her team. Her PROs are assigned to 2 ministries and their subjects. They have regular meetings. It is true that when we started out on the business model to provide public relations management and consultation services, you did have some functionaries who felt at risk, and we had to build the relationships, earn their trust, and help them to recognize that we're here to help them. We have an entire media outfit at their disposal, and so we showed them that they could now focus on internal communication, for example, and then outsource to us their public education campaigns. And so I'm just gonna ask Andrea to speak a little bit more about the building of relationships, which has been a focus for us over the last, let's say, 4 to 5 years, and it has really borne fruit.
Okay, so you spoke about building relationships, and I think that is at the heart of it. We have a communication team of 8 persons, and so each PRO is assigned to 1 or 2 ministries and all the departments and agencies under those ministries. So they keep in constant contact with the ministries, so much so that sometimes they are invited to the communication departments meeting, and so they are kept aware and abreast of what is happening within the ministries, and they report on them, and if whatever is happening, they help the communication persons within the ministries to get the information out there to the public. And there's also a lot of hand holding going on also. And I think Dr. Parks, we have I think I've seen one or two persons within the participant who actually work in the ministry, has a communication role within some ministries. I don't know if they would want to comment on that also.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you both so very much. I mean, this has been informative. And in fact, you know, just like what our participants said, even before the webinar started, they know that you need to have this again, maybe a part 2. Brittany said she can attest to what Andrea is saying, that there's really a lot of involvement and collaboration between your department, JIS, and the Ministry of Justice, where I assume Brittany works. So folks, thank you all so very much. Donna, Andrea, this was just food for thought. I'm really even starting to think about how do we marry what we're doing in terms of communication and marrying that with policy monitoring and evaluation, you know, to see that we are in fact tracking and seeing the outcomes that we're after. This has really been so meaningful, and I'm really so grateful and thankful to you both for taking the time to share with us this morning. And so we just go ahead, Donna.
Thanks again for the invitation and for all the participants who attended and for their involvement as well. Happy to help and reach out to us. You can find our contacts on our website. Thank you.
Thank you also. Thank you also,
Andrea. So just going to quickly wrap up, just to share a few announcements. For 2022, CARICAD is going to be focusing on the theme, resilience and recovery. And so all our activities, our blogs, our newsletters, our webinars are going to be centered around helping you, our clients, our member states, in this area of resilience and recovery. And so next month, well, what I have there are just some of the dates that we have for our webinars from now until July. So in next month, and you will see the advertisements come out as soon as we confirm with our various guests, we will put those out. So we'll have a webinar next month on climate leadership. In March, we will be talking about the emotionally resilient organization. So it's not just individuals who need to be emotionally intelligent and resilient, but our organizations need to be that way as well. I'm sure you'll be intrigued by that. April, we're looking at improving labor productivity and looking at that in the public sector context. In May, we are going to be launching the first of 2 webinar series that we hope to have this year. And in May 4, 11, 18, and 25, we're going to be talking about citizen-centered service excellence, or webinar series on that. And we'll be hearing from speakers from around the Caribbean public services on their work, their actual work in improving and achieving service excellence, how we use digital technology, how do we make sure it is truly citizen-centered, and how do we develop the appropriate policy frameworks to facilitate service excellence. And in June 14, 21, 28, up until July 5, we will again have our introduction to leadership. This time it will be a webinar series. Many of you I know here attended, and you know it was good. So we encourage you to look out for the advertisements for that. All our webinars are free. So many times people ask me, is there a cost? No, our webinars are free. Yes, some things there are costs, but our webinars are free. And so as many of you as possible, get yourselves, your teams registered and involved. So I want to thank you all for coming. I'm seeing all the compliments that it was very informative, enlightening presentation. Thank you. And here is an opportunity to give us even more feedback. I said, ask our virtual producer now to launch the poll. There it is. We want to get your feedback. So we ask you to just fill out that poll and do that before you log out. So thank you so much. And I look forward to sharing more with you on our upcoming webinars and seeing you as registrants in those as well. Thank you very much. All the best. Enjoy the rest of the day and the week.